Okay, in the last video, I talked about resizing the file size. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about resizing the image, the display part to get it matched up, how to figure that out. Now, for this particular website, I'm having you replace out all these images in the gallery. If we look at my example, let me go to the live vision. Okay, so as you can see here, all these images of these dancers are exactly the same size. They're roughly the same file size. Some will change depending on the colors that are in it, but they are the same width and height. So if I look at the code, I'm actually in Dreamweaver here, but so it allows me to hover over the image. I think it does this in brackets as well. That's the sidebar image. I'm looking specifically at the gallery one, and all of those are 600 by 600 pixels, so exactly square. And that's what we want to have, is them all to match up. If they do not match up, then you're going to get something like what's happening here. And we can see that this third image is little taller than this image. This image here is definitely taller. That's not matching up. And so it's throwing everything out of whack because the CSS code is saying take up 1/3 of the space. And if they are all not the same size, they're not going to match up. So you have to choose an image that's going to fit in that space. This last image here, you're going to have to crop it to make it fit in a square. But yet the photo wasn't taken with that in mind. So you have to figure out a crop. Do you want to keep these grapes, or do you want to keep this glass, or probably just going to have to choose a different image. This image up here definitely could be cropped differently. And if I'm looking at the code view on this and I'm hovering over this this image, say here, let's see what this is. That is really large. That's 1,920 by 1441. These need to all be resized, so to be cropped. So I'm going to go over to find this image, not that one. I think it was wine. Here's one. That's not that bad. This one is 1.2 megabytes, so that's pretty large, more larger than it needs to be. So let me bring that on up. And I said 600 by 600 is what I want it to be. So I'm going to go to image size here. And if I put in 600 here, then this is going to change to 400 in height. So I actually don't want to do that. Instead, I want to crop this to be what I want it to be. So I'm going to click the crop tool, which looks like the kind of a, I don't know, like a crop symbol. And up at the top, I'm going to say I want the width and height and resolution. I'm going to put it in. So 600 px by, that's the width I want it to be. And I want to select the height in the next one. So it always goes width, then height. So, but since they're the same, that doesn't matter. And so as you can see, it's kind of a square looking image here. And I want the resolution to be 72 dpi. Now I can either double click in the center of this to execute the crop, or I can bring it in and whatever it will be that. I can move it around inside it. I probably want this to be somewhat centered in the image. Maybe up here, I'm not sure. That might be the best crop for this image. A little bit more centered maybe. Definitely centered. I guess that will help. And I'll just double click in the center, and then there is my image. So it's different from the other images on this website, and it doesn't have to be 600 by 600 square. You could make them more horizontal, but as long as you're consistent, you need to be consistent with this particular template. Okay, so actually I'm going to go up to File, Save As, and not Save As. I'm going to go to File and Export Save for Web. And high is fine. go with that. It's 145K, much better than the 1.2 megabytes. And I'm going to save it back to the same folder which it was in, replace that out. And if I go back over to Dreamweaver now, re-import that, we can see that that image is a different width and height from the others, so the others just have to match up to it. So as I said, you can make sure that they're all this shape, more of a horizontal shape versus square, but as long as you're consistent is what matters, so that when it takes up 1/3 of that space, they're all equal and it doesn't create this weird gap.